My cheating fiancé texted a week before the wedding. Remind me of the date? I replied, don't worry about it. Then I canceled the wedding and used the deposit for a freedom party. Minutes later, her father was screaming on the phone after her card was declined. I'm Matthew, 32 male. I feel like I need to write this all down to prove to myself that it actually happened. It all started last Tuesday. T-7 days until the wedding. I was sitting at my desk, surrounded by seating charts and vendor contracts, trying to wrangle the final details of what was supposed to be the best day of my life. For the past year, my relationship with my fiancée, Lisa, 29, had felt off. There was a distance I couldn't bridge. Late nights she was vague about, her phone guarded like it was the key to a fortress. Every time I tried to talk about it, she'd turn it around on me. I was being insecure. I was letting the wedding stress get to me. I loved her, so I chose to believe her. The wedding planning itself was a second full-time job, mostly because her parents, Anthony and Margaret, viewed our marriage as their personal social event. Their taste was impeccable and incredibly expensive. I was footing the majority of the bill, a fact they were more than happy to leverage. To make things easier, I had added Lisa as an authorized user to one of my credit cards, designated strictly for wedding expenses. That was my first mistake. So Tuesday afternoon, my phone buzzes, a text from Lisa. I was expecting a question about flowers or music. What I got knocked the wind out of me. Hey, random question lol, but remind me of the date for the wedding again. I read it once, then twice. My heart didn't just sink. It plummeted. It felt like the floor had vanished beneath my feet. There was no follow-up text. No JK. It was real. This wasn't just forgetting a detail. This was the sign of someone so profoundly disengaged, so utterly absent from our shared life, that she didn't know the date of her own wedding. A week away. My first feeling wasn't anger. It was a dizzying, sickening wave of vertigo. I stumbled to the kitchen and gripped the counter, my knuckles white. There has to be another explanation, I thought. A weird joke? A typo? But I knew. In my gut, I knew this was the key to the locked room I'd been too scared to open for the last year. For 5 years, I had respected her privacy. But standing there with that text burning a hole in my mind, respect felt like a luxury I could no longer afford. I walked on unsteady legs to the living room where our shared tablet was charging. Her phone was synced to it. My hand was trembling so much I mistyped her password twice. On the third try, it opened. Her message history came up, and there it was, a long thread with a man named Daniel. I scrolled, my breath catching in my chest. It was all there, months of it. Plans for secret meetups, photos I'll never be able to unsee, talk of their future. One message from him sent the night before read, "You really going through with this wedding? Just leave him already." Her reply, sent less than an hour before she texted me, sealed it. I have to. It's too complicated to explain, but after, it'll be our time, I promise. The sickness I felt turned into something else. The chaotic, churning emotions inside me began to cool, to crystallize into a single, hard point of clarity. It was the kind of calm that comes after the storm has already destroyed everything. The damage was done. All that was left was to deal with the wreckage. My hands were steady now. My first action was to reply to her text. Don't worry about it. My second action was to call the venue. A beautiful, historic estate that cost a fortune. I spoke to the manager, Betty. My voice was hollow, but polite. I explained the wedding was canceled. She was professional, expressing sympathy before gently reminding me that the $20,000 deposit was, per the contract, strictly non-refundable. She did say, however, that I retained a venue credit for that amount, valid for 1 year, that could be used for any future event. At that moment, I couldn't imagine ever throwing a party again. I just said, "Thank you, I'll keep that in mind," and ended the call. My third action was to call my credit card company. I told the representative that my card had been compromised and that an authorized user needed to be removed immediately. I gave her Lisa's name. She confirmed Lisa's card would be declined from that moment forward and that a new card with a new number was on its way to me. I then began the heartbreaking process of calling my parents, my sister, and my groomsmen to tell them the wedding was off. Before I could get through that list, my phone rang. The caller ID was Anthony. I took a deep breath and answered, "Hello? Matthew, What in God's name is going on? It wasn't a question. It was an accusation, fired through the phone at full volume. Margaret's card was just declined. Declined at the tailor's. She was paying for my final fitting. Are you trying to humiliate us? I held the phone an inch from my ear. Hello, Anthony, I said, my voice devoid of any emotion. There's no stunt. The wedding is canceled. That card was for wedding expenses. There is no wedding. The card is no longer active. There was a strangled, sputtering sound. What do you mean canceled? You can't just cancel. We have people flying in. The announcements have been made. Yes, I can, I said, the cold clarity holding me steady. It's done. I hung up before he could respond. The silence in my apartment was deafening. I walked to the window and looked out at the city lights, not really seeing them. The adrenaline was fading, leaving a vast, empty space behind. The storm was just beginning. Update 1. Thank you all for the comments and DMs. I've read every one. It's strange how messages from strangers on the internet can make you feel less alone, but they do. The 24 hours after my original post were a siege. My phone was bombarded with calls and texts from Lisa, her parents, her siblings, her aunts. I put it on Do Not Disturb and let them scream into the void. Lisa eventually came to my apartment and banged on the door for nearly an hour. I sat on my couch, listening. The cycle was predictable. Pleading, Matthew, baby, please talk to me. Confusion, I don't understand what's happening. Anger, you can't just do this. Open the door. And finally, manipulative sobs, you're breaking my heart. How can you be so cruel? Later, a long email from Margaret arrived. It was a masterclass in narcissistic rage disguised as maternal concern. It detailed the immense humiliation I was causing their family, the significant emotional distress I was putting Lisa through, and the colossal financial inconvenience of it all. The final paragraph read, I don't know what's gotten into you, Matthew, but this selfish tantrum has gone on long enough. You are a grown man. You need to fix what you broke, and you need to do it now. Our family's reputation is on the line. My selfish tantrum. That's when I knew they were launching a PR campaign. This was confirmed when my sister Sandra called. Lisa's bridesmaids were messaging her and other mutual friends. The story was that I'd had a sudden dramatic breakdown. I got cold feet and was acting erratically, leaving poor Lisa heartbroken and abandoned at the altar. They were painting me as unstable to save face. That night, my groomsmen and Sandra came over. They brought pizza and whiskey. We sat around my living room, and for the first time, I let it all out. They didn't just offer platitudes, they got angry for me. My best man Mark pointed at the phone, which was still lighting up intermittently. You can't just hide. These people are trying to rewrite history with you as the villain. You have to get ahead of it. Sandra added, and what about that venue credit? That's 20 grand of your money just sitting there. Don't let them have the satisfaction of you wasting it. We should throw a party, a freedom party, celebrate the day you saved yourself. The idea, which seemed insane to me hours before, suddenly felt right. It felt like taking back the narrative. The next morning, I called Betty at the venue. The original date was, as expected, impossible to book on short notice. But she had an opening 3 weeks from now. I booked it. Matthew Palooza was officially on the calendar. Fueled by a new resolve, I spent the rest of the day on a different kind of project. I wasn't just going to defend myself. I was going to get a full accounting of the wreckage. I spent hours combing through the last 6 months of my credit card statements. The wedding expense card. The charges were staggering. Thousands of dollars at high-end spas, boutiques, and restaurants that had nothing to do with any wedding. Then I found it. A charge from 3 weeks ago. A high-end furniture gallery. The amount was $9,000. I called the gallery, gave them my name and the transaction date. The clerk was very helpful. Ah, yes, Mr. My last name, she said. The dining set. It's a beautiful piece. Your mother-in-law, Margaret, said it was a surprise wedding gift for your new home. Delivery is scheduled for the week after the wedding. She bought herself a $9,000 dining room set on my card and was going to pass it off as her gift to us. The sheer audacity was breathtaking. I canceled the order immediately. This was the final piece of evidence I needed. My quiet, calm anger returned, but this time it was focused. This wasn't just about infidelity anymore. This was a calculated financial extraction. I knew they wouldn't stop. Their campaign to paint me as the villain would only escalate. It was time to show them I had receipts, both literal and figurative. Update 2. The situation has escalated. The smear campaign continued, and I started getting texts from numbers I didn't recognize. Friends of Lisa's parents, telling me how disappointed they were in my immature behavior. They were trying to pressure me from all sides. So I moved forward with my plan. But it had to be smart. It had to be legally sound. My sister's friend, who is a paralegal, gave me some advice over the phone. You can't hold their property hostage. That's illegal, she said. But returning gifts is proper etiquette. Informing the gift givers of the circumstances is your prerogative, and suing for documented expenses is your legal right. What you do with that information is up to you. Her words gave me a new, much better idea. Not raw revenge. Strategic justice. First, I created 2 meticulously detailed spreadsheets. The first spreadsheet was an inventory of every wedding gift that had arrived at my apartment from Lisa's side of the family and their friends. I listed the item, the sender, and the retail value. The total was well over $30,000. The second spreadsheet was my bill of damages. It listed every single non-refundable deposit and personal expense I had incurred based on a direct, documented request from Lisa or her parents. I had the emails and texts to back up every line item. The $5,000 non-refundable deposit for the specific band Margaret insisted on. Darling, we can't have just any band. The $2,500 for the custom ice sculpture of their family's golden retriever. The $9,000 for the canceled dining set Margaret tried to buy herself. The $3,000 for specific floral arrangements her mother had to have. Non-refundable plane tickets I'd bought for 2 of her cousins who couldn't afford it, and on and on. The grand total of their specific, documented demands came to $24,750. Then, with Sandra's help, I drafted a letter. It was calm, professional, and absolutely devastating. It was addressed to Anthony and Margaret. The letter stated the following: that I was in possession of numerous wedding gifts from their friends and family. That proper etiquette demanded these gifts be returned to the original senders. That each gift would be returned with a personalized note from me. The note would thank them for their generosity and briefly, factually explain the reason for the wedding's cancellation and the gift's return. Due to Lisa's infidelity and the subsequent discovery of significant, non-wedding related expenses charged to my accounts. It then mentioned the second spreadsheet, a copy of which was included with the letter. It laid out the $24,750 in costs I had incurred directly due to their requests. Finally, the offer: they had 10 business days to wire me the full $24,750 as reimbursement. If they did, I would agree to return the gifts to them in a single, discreet drop-off for them to handle as they saw fit, with no accompanying notes. My silence, essentially. If the deadline passed, I would proceed with my original plan of returning every gift directly to their friends, complete with the explanatory notes. The threat wasn't illegal. It wasn't extortion. It was a choice. They could either quietly reimburse me for the money they'd effectively squeezed out of me, or I would systematically and politely dismantle their social reputation, piece by embarrassing piece. I was giving them the opportunity to choose the privacy they so clearly valued over the money they felt entitled to. I sent the letter via certified mail, with signature required. The ball was now in their court. I didn't know if they'd call my bluff, but for people obsessed with appearances, I knew explaining this to their entire social circle was a nightmare scenario. I was betting that their pride was, for once, worth less to them than their reputation. Final update. It's been a while. The dust has settled, and I finally have the headspace to write this all down. The letter was delivered on a Monday. The signature confirmation email felt like a starting pistol. For 2 days there was absolute silence. Then, the attack came, but through a different channel. Margaret called my mother. She didn't scream. She was crying. She spun a tale of a confused young man, me, throwing away his future, of a heartbroken daughter, and of a terrible misunderstanding. She begged my mom to talk some sense into me, to get me to stop this cruel crusade. My mom, who I had already told everything, was magnificent. She listened patiently and then said, "Margaret, it sounds like Matthew has everything documented. I suggest you deal with him and his sister directly. Do not call this number again. The next move was a text from Lisa to me. It was the first one since I'd ignored her at my door. It was a novel. It rambled from, I know I messed up, but I love you, to, my parents are going crazy, you're destroying our family, to, Daniel meant nothing. The final line was a desperate plea. Please, just send the gifts back to me. We can figure out the money later. Don't do this to them. This was the crack in the facade I was waiting for. She was scared. Not for me, not for us, but of the social blast radius. I didn't reply. On the 9th day, with one business day to spare, my phone buzzed with an email alert from my bank. You have received an incoming wire transfer. Amount, $24,750. I stared at the screen for a long time. It wasn't a feeling of victory, not yet. It was a heavy, profound sense of finality. They had paid for my silence. They chose reputation over pride. I transferred the money to a new savings account I labeled Escape Fund. As promised, I did not send the letters. Sandra coordinated with Margaret for the exchange. They were to bring a U-Haul to a storage facility near my apartment. Sandra and my best man, Mark, oversaw it. I wasn't there. I couldn't be. Sandra told me it was colder and more pathetic than she could have imagined. Anthony and Margaret didn't speak a word. They moved like robots, loading boxes, their faces tight with fury and humiliation. Lisa sat in the cab of the U-Haul, staring straight ahead. She looked small. The Freedom Party, 3 weeks later, was everything I needed it to be. It wasn't a wild rager. It was a gathering in that same beautiful ballroom, but filled with warmth and genuine support. We used the credit. I gave a short toast, not about betrayal, but about gratitude for true friendship. It was the first day I felt genuinely light. I haven't heard from them since the exchange. Through mutual acquaintances, I've heard that Lisa and Daniel are living together, but it's far from the romantic escape she'd pictured. The truth, in hushed tones, got out. My surgical strike worked. I never had to detonate the bomb, but they knew it was real. Their family is still navigating the social fallout. As for me, the healing is a process. I'm in therapy, untangling the last 5 years. Some days are still heavy. But I took the Escape Fund and booked a 2-week trip to a place with mountains and no cell service. I needed to stand on solid rock for a while. The experience taught me a hard lesson about listening to my gut and that sometimes the most satisfying justice isn't loud and explosive, but quiet, precise, and documented. I'm scarred, but I'm free. And I'm finally, truly, okay. Thank you all for being a part of this bizarre chapter. It's time to close this account and start the next one.